This is obviously a very special book for me, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about some of the content, but I'm also going to invite you to think. I know it's quite early, but I'm going to invite you to do some thinking. And I'm going to start with a little story of a true event that happened only a few years ago. And this is a report into an incident in an organisation. And I think the findings and conclusions reached by this report are very interesting. And the theme of the, The theme of the report was one simple sentence. He'll get mad. And I'm going to show you a redacted version of the summary of the report. And you may recognise some of the phrases. Feared a negative reaction, psychological pressure, unjustified risk, dominated by the goal of, at any cost. And if I fill in the blanks, you may recall the event in 2010, the plane carrying the Polish president, Lech Kaczynski, crashed, killing nearly 100 people. And the conclusion of the report was that the presence of the Air Force commander had placed psychological pressure on the pilots to go against everything that they knew in their training, and the flight recorder captures the words, "He'll get mad." And because two professionally trained people were so scared of a reaction of a person who wasn't even on the flight deck, he was back at the back of the plane, they took a terrible decision that killed 100 people. Now, here we are in the corporate world. It's highly unlikely that anybody's at sort of mortal risk of death or injury as we assemble here this morning. But I wonder what happens to us when we are confronted with a fear. Oh, no, he'll get mad. Corporate workplaces have the three conditions for abuse to be systemic: power, fear, and secrecy. We give power to managers over other people. We give those managers power to evaluate, to rate performance, to award promotions, to give bonuses, to take away opportunities. Immense power. We underestimate that power at our peril. We place a hierarchy above those managers to keep them in check. So even as a manager, if you think, I know what the right thing to do, oh, hang on a second, I wonder when I report to my boss, I wonder if that will go down okay. The Air Chief Marshal in the cockpit of that plane said he'll get mad. The hierarchy was sitting at the back of the plane, blissfully unaware of any conversation that was going on, and yet his name was being taken in vain. And so much of what we do with each other at work actually is in secret. We have one-to-ones behind closed doors, quite rightly so. We say things are confidential. We ask people not to share certain things. And even if poor behaviour is witnessed, who is going to call it out? Who's going to be in a meeting, and who's going to be the one who stops the meeting for a moment and says, "Please don't talk to me like that"? That's a pretty brave thing to do. When actually all of these behaviours become quite normalised. We don't even notice. Ronan talked about musing on whether he may or may not be a corporapath. Well, I'm not going to comment on that. What I am going to say to you is that I have definitely been a corporapath in my working life. I would say particularly was it when I was in my late 20s. I was a young CFO. I was very arrogant. I was very driven. I'm high read on insights. I'm an ENTJ. And yes, definitely. A conditioned personality state. So we are not psychopaths. We are not sociopaths. Outside of work, we are completely normal and loving, and we have empathy. But inside of work, under pressure, that empathy can depart. So actually, we can become controlling and manipulative. We don't even know that we're doing it. Those behaviours can be very intimidatory. And we create fear. We don't mean to. So what is a corporapath? Well, there is a 20-point test in the book. Are you brave enough to engage with the questions? Yes. I even when I was writing it, I was thinking, oh God, I'm past number 5 now, and I'm toast. And I introduce us all to the corporate hostage, because those small acts, Ronan, what you would refer to as leadership litter, the small things that we do that just become normalised, that just become the way we do things around here. Wouldn't dream of behaving like that with our friends or our family. Well, maybe. Where controlling behaviours become the norm. And so there has to be a contract. There has to be a Faustian pact that we have with our employer. Well, it's okay that, I can get stressed and anxious because, I'm paid really well, and look at the benefits, and look at the place I work, and look at the food, and look at and look at my CV. So, I've had 3 moves, and I've only been here a year in this role, so I really need to do because it doesn't look very good on the CV. The stories that we have that trap us. It's unthinkable to leave. Are you a corporate hostage? In the corporate form of Stockholm Syndrome, where we become in love with our abuser. I've coached over 200 executives in the last 15 years. I can't tell you the number of times I've had a senior executive download stress and anxiety for 20 minutes and at the end say, but I love my job. Okay. And corporate traumatic stress disorder. We've all heard of PTSD, and PTSD is becoming more and more public. We've even had a case where one of the assistants working for John Bercow, the Speaker of the House of Commons, was signed off work with PTSD. So the corporate version, PTSD is typically caused by a single violent act, war, abuse, violence in the street. We don't come into work every day to violence, but we do come into work every day to a low-level, persistent stress and anxiety. There's a test in the book. Dare you take the test? And if you take the test and you score quite high, will you then go and seek some assistance? Better not take the test, really. Now, 20 years ago, a very bright guy called Daniel Goleman gave the world emotional intelligence. I know there were some others. If they were in the room today, they would say, no, it wasn't Daniel. I understand that. He wrote a seminal book around emotional intelligence. And fundamentally, the two pillars of emotional intelligence, self-awareness and self-regulation. The ability to calmly consider, this is what's happening to me, and therefore this is how I'm going to respond. A calm, rational consideration. Brilliant. And that book has sold in its millions. Who knows? That book sold in its millions. And there are courses all around the world teaching people how to have better emotional intelligence. But here's the issue with emotional intelligence. It wholly depends on us being in a calm and rational state, or being able to get ourselves in a calm and rational state. When we're under pressure, that calm and rational state is not available to us. We can't access it because our brains don't work in that way. We're under pressure most of the time. That pressure, in my view, is getting worse and worse. When I started out 40 years ago, I could write somebody a letter and wait 5 days. It was lovely. I might have taken my briefcase home on a Friday night, but nobody phoned me and there was no email. It was bliss. And here we are. We can send an email to somebody at 6:30 in the morning. We can arrive at our desk at 8 thinking, well, they haven't responded yet. It's madness. What happens to us under pressure is we basically go into fight or flight. We get very high levels of adrenaline, very high levels of a stress hormone called cortisol. And as human beings, we are not biologically designed to run high levels of those chemicals for the time that we do. We're designed for those things to be happening, maybe once, twice a day when we really need survival. And now we're running those high levels of chemicals pretty much through the day. It could be 6:30 in the morning. All I need to do is check my phone. I don't even need to open the email. I just need to see the name of the person that sent it. And I can be going, oh, for God's sake. It's 6:30 in the morning and I'm already running adrenaline. We're in survival mode. Actually, what we're doing is we're rewiring, which is why so many of the aberrant behaviors around us that we wouldn't tolerate outside of work just become normal to us because we've got used to them. We know how to handle it. We don't realize that actually we're suffering from an anxiety disorder. And under pressure, EQ won't cut it. We need CEQ, corporate emotional intelligence, that is available to us under pressure. And it has 4 pillars. 3 didn't seem enough to me and 5 was too many. Pillar 1, we have to have an awareness of how we behave unconsciously when we're under pressure. Because it is unconscious, we are unaware of it. We have to be smacked in the face with that self-awareness under pressure. And we have to make our default reaction to pressure being curious, not getting impatient. When one of your team comes to you and says, oh, really sorry, boss, but I'm not going to make that deadline I committed to, what's our default? If our default is impatience, we've just punished that person, very subtly, but they will feel. I know it's really hard to smile and to say, okay, let's look at what we can do about this and be curious. So what was it about the deadline? Yeah, it's really hard. When all you want to do inside is scream. I get it. So this is the bit, or one of 2 bits today, where you will just do a little. The second pillar is about positive learning. We have to help people learn through their struggle. People are going to struggle. We take incredibly bright people, we give them very stretching objectives and lots of autonomy. They're going to struggle. Struggle's great. Unfortunately, some people don't feel safe to look as though they're struggling. Maybe sometimes in meetings, what we really want in meetings is super rock solid confidence. That's not the most natural state in the world. We're always learning. Our brains are constantly reforming connections. Are we learning negatively through being conditioned with consequences? Are we learning not to do things? Or are we learning to be free to experiment, to try things out? There's a joy in a creative struggle. And again, it comes back as the manager and a leader for how we hold people and how we react when we're under pressure. Transparency and vulnerability, bearing in mind that secrecy is one of the enemies. Fear can really be fostered in that atmosphere of secrecy. So when the next time you choose to not to share something with somebody, either for fear of hurting their feelings or they don't really need to know, get the facts out there. Facts can never hurt people. Share information. Let people in on what you know. When they know everything that you know, I promise you they'll pretty much reach the same conclusion that you do. And vulnerability. And I am not talking about a manufactured vulnerability to look as though I'm strong. So me sharing information about my family are all here today. This is such a joy for me. My wife sitting here, my son and my daughter are here today. But me telling you about my family is not me being vulnerable, that's me being human. Being vulnerable means saying, I've no idea. It's such a great question. I've no idea how we're going to do that. Can you help me? And how safe do we feel going to a meeting and saying to our boss, boss, good question, I don't know. I've no idea. Isn't that great? Yeah, it's not necessarily what's required. And we have to keep a grip on reality. And this is what we've lost. We've lost connection with plastic and the climate. We've lost that. We're in our corporate world. And I won't look at Ronan when I say this. Numbers, targets, objectives, they're not real. Organizational structures are not real. We treat these things as though they are immutable objects. The most important thing, no, people are the most important thing. What we are striving to do in this great cause, that's real. Doing the right thing is real. And so many of us, me included, are guilty of saying fine and noble words and meaning them when we say them. And then our actions betray the fact that we don't really mean it. How many of us have said to our teams, you are the most important thing to me? People are the most important thing. Oh, by the way, your one-to-one next week, could we just put it back? Because anyway, we've talked really, haven't we? Was that all right with you? Of course it would be. Yes, excellent, good, right answer. Yeah. And I have a real challenge for you. The final question I'm going to leave with you today, maybe just to talk to each other in a moment, is, what is your leadership commitment for 2019? And the words are easy. My commitment is, I need to be better at. So the real question is what you're going to do about it. So, yes, I am on a bit of a mission. And Ronan again, and Josh, where's Josh? Yes, he may be still working outside. Josh, no, that's not Josh. So Ronan, thank you so much for hosting this incredible event for me today. Real appreciation. And Josh Lawson, who's put all the work in, so grateful. We have to make 2019 the year, because we're running out of time. how we treat each other. That's where it starts. Everything else will fall into place.